I'm grateful for you, man.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people watch us. They watch Modern Man, and they pay attention to us. But what you just heard, guys, watch it, right there, that's real deal. Not that we're not, but he just shared vulnerably, empathetically. He met some of you where you're at. You need to call your friends for help. And if you lose friends, they weren't real genuine, okay? At the end of the day, if I've got friends who I can't have a beer with, that's fine. Having a beer is not a qualification of being my friend, right? I can go a night without one if I can spend time. So, guys, if you watch this, I mean, the guests that Ted brings on, and again, props for Ted for bringing on dudes who just share their stories. So, Davey, man, thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Modern Man. Thanks for being with us. And this is the season finale of season 3. Yeah, clap it up. Clap it up. Everybody here.
Great.
Oh my gosh. If you guys are just joining us for the first time, first hit that subscribe button, and then I need you to do me a favor, go to the channel and watch all the videos that you've missed. If you are all caught up, we appreciate you rocking with us from episode 1 all the way up until now. Before we jump into today's subject matter, before we introduce our guest, I have to introduce the panelists all cuddled up on the couch together.
The twins.
We have Jonathan Parker, Tim Pecoraro joining us today. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you guys being here. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today, David Murray, with us, joining us to talk about today's topic. David, man, thanks for taking the time.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're going to jump into the topic, but before we do so, I want you to introduce yourself really quick to everybody, maybe to the other panelists and folks watching, who you are, where you're from, what you do, and then we can kind of start talking about today.
Okay. Like you said, my name's David, David Murray. I grew up here in Greenville, South Carolina. Lived here pretty much all my life.
An actual native.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, born and raised. So lived in Charlotte, out of high school about 2 years, but been here my whole life. Went to North Greenville University, played football there.
But you were a bad man.
Not as bad as I like to say I was, but went to Wade Hampton High School. So, but grew up, in the Taylors area, and right now I'm working at BMW. Been there for going on a little over 5 years now. Time flies. So my role is, you could say, it's kind of like a supervisor is what it's called, as a process supporter. So I'm not online building cars, but I'm offline dealing with scheduling, training, all that, just prepping me for management and stuff like that. So that's who I am. That's right now. That's currently what I am doing. That's a goal that I see. BMW is not going anywhere away, right?
Well,
That's a stable company.
It sure is.
they're doing all right.
I have a feeling they might be
They're
around
doing
just a little
fine.
while longer.
Yeah, they'll survive the Rona.
And yet, let us know if you can pick up a couple, 2, 3, bring over to us, drop them off.
Okay.
Just test.
Just test. We'll test them for a year.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining us today, man, because I know actually today's topic is a pretty heavy one, and it's one that a lot of us deal with. Us as men, I know there's probably women watching on YouTube that also deal with this, and we're talking about addiction here. And I know you've had a personal journey with that, and I appreciate you kind of having the vulnerability to share some of it with us today, because there's so much that we can learn, because there's someone watching right now who's probably struggling with their own addiction. And what I hope from this episode, they can realize, regardless of what that addiction might be, they're not the only one in that struggle. And a lot of times we think our struggle is our own, our problem is our own, when there is a community out there willing to help us with the specific issue, addiction, or problem that we might have. And I'm hoping that this episode can kind of just open up the conversation for somebody to get to that point of maybe saying, I need help. And I think that's where we should start, because I know for so many folks, some of us could be functioning addicts, right? Where it's like, hey, I do this, but it doesn't impact my work. It doesn't impact my relationships, so I'm fine. But I'd like to ask you, what happens in that moment when you get to the point where you're like, oh, I need help? And I'd love maybe your reflection that you can talk to some of the people watching, that maybe they can pull back that curtain before it's too late for them.
man, you know, I think that's the important, especially as I can't speak for women, you know, but I know for men, when you get to that point, that's where it can be, it's hard. You know, in my years of addiction, when I knew that I had an issue and I had a problem, I didn't know what to do, you know? And all it remained kind of what I thought was a secret. Because it wasn't, my addiction wasn't, I guess you could say, you know, it wasn't, you know, you can see some guys or girls in addiction and, you know, in and out of jail, you know, committing crimes, whatever, you know, homeless. That wasn't me. I guess you could say I was a functioning addict, you know, and when I knew I had a problem, because to me at first it was just fun and I didn't think, you know, anytime I could quit and everything. But then, you know, and that's where it became hard. And I think that's where the spiral went. Once you realize something's wrong and you can't do anything or know how to fix it, the spiral became rapid, you know, downhill.
Well, that's self-reflective right there, because something you said about, you know, the ability to quit it, you know, and I know Charles, he's in here. We used to do alcohol-free month. And someone was like, we would pick February, the shortest month.
Thanks for being dedicated. So strong.
Everyone's like,
make it.
We got it.
We got this.
We got bonus days.
Especially on a leap year, right? Where you get it even shorter.
but like, yeah, everyone's like, dry January. Like, nah, February.
Right.
But I guess the purpose of that was the quitting of it, was the stepping away of it. Is kind of, you know, asking yourself, who's in control here? This substance, this website, or, you know, this relationship, or am I in control? So that was huge what you just said there, is like when you realize the difficultness to quit, because a lot of us tell ourselves that, man. A lot of us tell ourselves we can quit.
So, but I mean, to your point, wouldn't you say, I mean, we can talk about substances like alcohol, obviously, or tobacco, but some people need a month off from social media. Like, I think part of, or you know, to slow down on some extra hustle on the work, because I think addiction, because we all have our own forms of things we're committed to, maybe overly abundantly so, but addiction is taking control over your life. So I mean, I guess it's more of a question than a statement. I feel like guys need to check what could be possibly controlling them, no matter what it is. Not just the substance, but maybe you need to check how much you're working, check how much you're on social media, check how much Netflix you're watching, and go 30 days without it. Yeah. Because if you can go 30 days without it, it doesn't have control. But after 2 weeks, if you're struggling, I mean, breaking out in sweats, you probably need to talk to somebody about that.
There's a book, that's what I was looking up, and I have it on a shelf, and I read it some time back, but Russell Brand, he's the comedian / actor, but the book is amazing. It's Recovery, Freedom from Our Addictions. And what's interesting is all the addictions he had, he starts off with talking about, because he's English, British born, from Britain, English born, and he talks about chocolate biscuits. That's where it started, just a biscuit. And so what people do is it's kind of like, it's like when I see believers, you know, in the church, and I'll say to them, you know, there's no like misdemeanor sin and felony sin. You know what I mean? Sin is sin, right? So what he's trying to do is get people to understand the addictions always have a genesis, and it doesn't matter. There's still things that can take control of our lives, but it is that point of acknowledging what it is. So he took the 12-step program and he just dropped the F-bomb on it. So do you want to, can you admit that your life is effed? You know, he's like, he literally goes through the whole thing, and he's like, this is what he walks people through, and he writes amazing. You know, his writing is amazing, but he talks about chocolate biscuit to alcohol to drugs to sex. And he talked about, and it's not that one was a gateway to the other, it was that he was more open to others because he was constantly looking for finding ways to cope. And that made everything okay. And the key that you said is functioning. And just because something functions doesn't mean it's functioning properly, right? Yep. Because functioning can have deficiency in it And the reason you get to dysfunction is because when things become deficient in its function, it turns into a dysfunction. You know what I'm saying? And so, and that's just something that because I do this thing, 5 functions of a team, and I talk about that is if you don't pay attention to these things that are missing, you know what I mean? That are, it's like, for instance, if a kid doesn't have enough vitamins, vitamin D or whatever, that now is because it's a lack of something. And ultimately, the functioning child can move into a dysfunctional thing, right? So how do you remove it? You have to get it to a functional place. But it comes down to, if we're running around convincing ourselves, nobody sees this, it's just me. I can handle this on my own. I'm functioning. I go to work every day. I do this, I do that. You put yourself in this spot to where you can't heal what you don't reveal, right? And as long as you keep it to yourself, you can just keep functioning until that spiral happens, as you were saying too. And I think that's the part. It's almost like, now I've gone too far, what am I going to do? Or help, how do I really get out? And most people wait until they get to the help part, and they ignore all the speed bumps that were getting them there.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we're kind of going down this perfect path, because I even wrote down, there's 2 moments where a lot of us decide to change. We either have a eureka moment where we realize this isn't going to work, or the decision to change comes for us. And a lot of times we notice about, we notice about what's happening when other things in our life start to slip. And I'd love to refer back to you in terms of, Davey, when was it you noticed other areas of your life starting to take effect from what was going on? And what was that process like? Because I understand for some folks who might be going through it, there's a balance, there's a tug of war in between these 2 worlds that are going back and forth. If you could give us some insight into how that journey was for you and help us kind of understand that a little better, I'd love to kind of jump in there.
I mean, it was tough, because you're having to, now you're trying to balance that. And at that time, when during most of my addiction, the girl I was dating and we got married and everything, I saw the effects on that. The relationship. I was putting major strain on the relationship. I was putting major strain on my friendships. I would get into a moment, and the next day I'd come to work or somewhere, and everybody would say, "You know what you did last night," or "What you said to me last night," and I was like, "Man, I had no clue." And I was, and it was, so then the lying and the manipulation starts to increase, the denial, fear, it all, because I look back in all that time, and, if that's the thing we say, like with men, and I think that's something, like, I have a great upbringing, really, really, really good upbringing. I wouldn't trade my parents, my family for anything, great memories. My dad was a Marine, and he wasn't tough, he saw a really bad part in war, he was highly decorated, and he saw a lot of bad things, and that made him a quiet man. And what I can remember, my dad, the way he would show love was through action. He was never verbally or physically abusive. Like I said, but it was always, you got to be the man. You got to be the man. You've got to. It was, and a lot of us are taught that. And when I knew I had issues, man, I remember going back, and sometimes, because I worked in the bar business, and that lifestyle consumed me. Drugs were easy to come through, and alcohol, of course, is right there. And those were just symptoms of my issues. Those weren't my issues. Cocaine and alcohol was not my issue. The issue was the things that I was masking. I was masked through that. But going back and looking when it came to a point to where I knew I needed help. And it came to a point, if I'd have only known then how much support, because I was scared to say, you know, I'm an addict. I've got a problem. I need help. You know, like I kept in this denial of myself, telling myself that I can get out of this. I can somehow work. You know, I can work my way through this. I've gotten through other things, and you know, I probably could have saved a lot of destruction in my life. You know, and that. But once you do that, you know, I mean, there became that separation because I had to separate myself, you know, and that was the beauty of it because, you know, I don't, you know, even though like Charles and Ted, we had a life inside that lifestyle, and that most people that knew me, because that was my life, was that industry. I had a lot of great friends in that, but I had to separate myself because you can't be sober and clean and still going out on Friday and Saturday nights in the bar.
In the same way that you were when you were in jail.
You just can't.
Right.
And it's not anything about that. It's me. I have a problem.
Yeah.
And I can't handle that.
Yeah.
You know, I can't, and I have to eliminate that problem from me. And I lost a lot in that process. A lot of people separated that because that's the only way they knew me. That's the only way they could do that. But then the ones that are genuine, you know, like I don't hang out with Charles and Ted we're older now, but you know, but during that time, you know, I didn't hang out with them on Fridays and Saturday nights like we used to.
Now we crush Wild Wings lunch.
Our relationship is still there. It just looks different.
Right.
You know, it has to be in a healthy environment for me.
So what would you say to a guy who's watching this right now, and he is terrified that if he tells his buddies, I need help, he's scared that he's going to lose his friends? Like, what encouragement would you give him?
I mean, looking back, you gain so much more. You might lose and feel like you're losing initially at first, but you know, I'm not come into, people don't ever look at me, or at least to my face, or say, you know, all I hear is praise. They're proud of what you've done, proud of, you know, I'm going on over 5 years clean and sober, you know, and I mean, I haven't even picked up a cigarette, you know. I was a heavy smoker too, you know, so I've been able to walk away from all that, but there's so much more. You know, like there's nothing to be afraid of. You know, that's what I would say. You know, there's really nothing to be afraid of, because there's nothing wrong with saying you need help. When it comes to, I mean, you know, you look at it even as people that are successful business, you know, people. They have come at some point. You ever look at you ever look at somebody that's a good employee or a good manager or somebody that's wanting to grow, the only way they're growing and changing and evolving is by asking for help. You know, you ever see that one employee who thinks they've got all the answers and they know everything, and they're very isolated, and a lot of, they don't grow. You know, they're self-driven. So that's, I mean, I would just say, you know, don't fear it. You know, there's nothing wrong with saying you need help, you know, and you learn that once you step into that community. Right. You know, there's people out there to, you know, that's a lot of people like it when I go to meetings and stuff like that, you know, when you get up and, you know, depending on whether you go to NA or AA or Celebrate Recovery, whichever of the three, you know, you want to go to, you know, a lot of people, they, you know, when they get up or say something or they get a chip or anything, or they want to talk, is like, hey, you know, like I go to Celebrate Recovery, and you know, it's like, my name's David Murray, you know, I struggle with addiction from chemical and alcohol and sexual purity, and I'm a faithful believer in Jesus Christ. And then everybody yells back, hey, David, you know. But they do that in NA, you know, or AA. You go to NA and you say, man, I struggle with heroin addiction, and I'm here tonight. I just need to let go and talk. And everybody goes back and says that. Yeah. It's to let you know that you're not alone. It's okay to not be okay.
Right.
You know, it's not okay to stay there.
Right.
You know, I just stole that from some pastor, but
you sound so much cooler saying it. Like from a place of like actual experience, not from some dude behind a piece of wood.
Yeah.
So, something you said about, you know, there's nothing to be afraid of. And I remember you on our podcast, you were talking about something your dad said that really stuck with you. I'd love for you to share it here. But kind of, I want to debunk the myth of what strength is, right? Because a lot of people are like, you know, I'm strong, I'm gonna hold on, I don't need no help. And kind of what you mentioned is like asking for help is really how you grow and how you get past whatever challenges that are in front of you. When you started your rehab journey, I'd love for you to share that impact, because not just what you were doing, but when you mentioned your father being a quiet man and everything, now that the audience has the context of who your father is and what he said to you in that moment and how it landed, I'd love for you to kind of share that. And for me, I think that shows perfectly the depiction of what true strength is.
Yeah. I think it shows what true love is too. So I remember going up, leading up to the moment, you know, I was so unsure of so many things. I was confused. I'd been walking in a cloud for years. You know, I look back now and, you know, things will pop up in my head, and I was like, man, I don't even, you know, like, you know, it's like, I mean, it was, but, you know, so I just lead up to it, you know. It came fast because it wasn't like David got arrested, he got caught with a bunch of cocaine in his pocket, or he got a DUI, or, you know, or he didn't have any money, and so he broke into some store. You know, it was no traumatic thing like that. Like I said, it was leading up. And I remember I came home, I'd been out all night with some guys, and you don't even, that's when I say we put stress on other people, you know, I literally lost track of probably 6 hours from probably 11 till about 5 in the morning of all I was doing was chasing to find the next bag. And this was the last night. I saw y'all two at Rocks, and then I was out and this was me trying to fight. I was already trying to go to meetings, and I was failing miserably because I wasn't getting it, you know. Anyway, fallout from there. Coming home, you know, 6 in the morning. You're high. I've got a 1-year-old child, you know, and it wasn't healthy. It wasn't, and I saw that, and I was like, man, I need that. That was my epiphany. I was like, I'm ruining my family. I'm destroying my family, and I grew up in a great family, you know, and that was so. And I battled a lot of I battled a deep depression, you know, suicidal thoughts, because I thought I couldn't get out of what I was in, and the best way, the lie is that you want it to just end it, because I've already tried a couple times and have failed. So anyway, it was not in the house. Went and stayed in a hotel for a couple days, and you know, I battled life, you know, whether to live or not. And I had a moment of clarity in that moment, you know. And you were saying there's that road, and I was like, it couldn't come at a brighter sign. It was like, you've got two options, because then at the time my wife was like, you've got to go into recovery, or rehab, and I knew that. So I'm looking, I was like, either I'm going to recovery, to a place, take this serious, or I'm going to end up dead or in jail. and I knew it. It was one of two things, you know, and, you know, of course, I chose, you know, going to that. But so the night before, I called my sisters. They had no clue. You know, they had no clue what's going on. It's just like, hey, I'm going to this 7-month program, you know, and
yeah, I'm not going to overnight thing.
Yeah.
7 months.
yeah, you know, and I've been hiding this. I mean, I hid it from a lot of people. They probably saw, and now they look back and it was like, yeah, you know, they could probably see it. That's my denial, you know, and a lot of people probably didn't think that the severity of it. I was like, yeah, it's just common, you know. He was a bartender. Of course he's gonna drink some, you know. You know, that's just what you do, you know. So, but they didn't understand the deepness. Most people didn't understand the deepness. But anyway, so going in, and man, I'm scared, man. You know, you're afraid of rejection. You're afraid of failure and everything. And I looked up my dad as like a best friend. In the moment, my dad could have said a lot. This is exactly what I was telling him. My dad could have said a lot. We'll let that pass.
Yeah.
And I'm also not going
Your
to
dad
have any
didn't say that.
sarcastic comments.
Yeah.
About
Your dad didn't
Say what?
I'm not going to say anything sarcastic.
Yeah, I was about to, but anyway. You know, like I was terrified, and I was like, man, am I even doing it? What am I doing? You know, like I have no clue. Like right now I'm just being obedient to things people telling me to do. You know, I'm trying to seek advice outside of myself, because myself led me up to this point of going into recovery. So I don't need to be listening to myself. But my dad, you know, he just looked at me and he's just like, man, I'm proud of you. Wow. You know? And he could have said, and I was telling him, he could have said a lot, because he worked his tail. My parents came from nothing. I mean, nothing. You know, my dad at 18 was, you either go into war or, you know, and they worked themselves. But my dad did everything for his family. You know, he drove the lesser car for us to have the car. He worked for us to go to college. You know, he sacrificed, he did all, and he could have said a lot of things. He could have said, you know, you're ungrateful, you're spoiled, I'm disappointed in you. He could have said a lot of things in hatred or anger or just in discomfort, you know. You know, we all react sometimes under pressure the wrong way, you know, but that's what I say, it's or love. Yeah. And, you know, and just because I don't hang out with Ted and Charles are my good friends in a certain spot anymore on a certain night doesn't mean that they don't still care for me. Exactly. And just in that moment, in my struggle and my weakness, my dad, the only thing he knew what to say was the biggest impact in my life, because that let me walk through that next, you know, besides my family, that stuck in my head, you know.
I love that, because people don't understand the impact of words. Because if it would have just been, I am so disappointed in you, you are a piece of crap, right? Or I'm proud of you. Like those two, you know what I mean? That little coupling on each side makes the biggest difference. Yeah. But there's two things I want to say, because I think, you know, I had a substance issue, especially in high school. It's one of the reasons, you know, I failed miserably at college and things like that. And mine was non-prescription medication that I just enjoyed taking. Okay, I'll just leave it there. But when you said you tried a lot of things, it just didn't work, and you always found yourself back, and you were with Charles and Ted, and you know, they weren't the ones, by the way, giving it to him.
Yeah. No, they weren't. Yeah,
those of you watching, it wasn't these guys. It's on the record.
On the record, real.
That is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
So
that's a good piece of clarity.
But you said it just didn't work, and you kept going, and you found that window of time, whatever, and you said you were trying, but it didn't work. I have two questions for you. What was the thing that was different for when you tried for that last time that got you to this 5-year point, right? What did you do? What was the thing that made it stick in that last attempt? The other one is, how much or how important was the vision of that wife, the kid, the future that you wanted? How much did that play a part into your decisions as well?
I mean, ultimately, I guess the difference in that, so is what I was doing. I was going to meetings but I was still living in this world, in this other world. So, and I would have, a couple, I could go 30 days, or, a couple weeks, but then I would miss a meeting because I'm working in this business and I don't have a set schedule. I'm not a banker and work 9 to 5 and I can go every single night. So if I go to this one that I like, then I didn't go this week. And then I go a whole week and I didn't have I just didn't get it. I didn't understand the material. I didn't understand the process. I just thought I had a drug issue and that was it. That's all I thought I had. If I could just stop doing this and drinking and doing drugs, everything else would be fine, But that wasn't it,
Right. Those were symptoms.
Yeah, those were symptoms, And so I really think the difference was going into a long-term in-house facility. Okay. For me, it really was.
It separated you from everything. No options.
Yeah, there was no options. You didn't go there during the day and then go home. You stayed. Yeah. You stayed there.
It's like dropping a kid off at church, telling the pastor to fix them, and I'll pick them up in a little while and ruin everything you just put in them.
Yeah.
But there's none of that. It's like, here, you're staying.
Yes. Yeah. And in the first few weeks of that, that's the thing. Like it is off a 12-step. Yep. It is. That's where I literally the first they start this thing called pre-program, and it's the first 4 weeks of this, and they don't really jump on you. Right. They're letting you just figure this out. Let the cloud come off of you. Let some people have some major withdrawals. Some harder drugs, and you're trying to really just encompass all that's going on right now. So they don't really try to jump on you, and so you sit there and then you start hitting these steps. And that's what the difference was. I was able to work those steps and be able to really dig deep. That's what it was. I was really found out that it wasn't the drugs that was my problem. There was something else deeper that I needed to work on.
And vision for life, how big once you started getting the sober mind and the clarity and absorb what it was, how big of a part did that vision play for what you wanted to see your life look like?
It played a huge role. I just wanted to be happy again, to be honest with you. I love it. Because I wasn't happy. And it wasn't happy because of somebody else. It was happy because I wasn't happy because I was battling myself.
Yeah, your best decisions got you there.
Yes, absolutely.
And I can come up with the stuff Tim comes up with.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. That's why I'm taking notes.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's incredible, Dave. That's incredible, man. I'm grateful for you, man.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
I think people watch us. They watch Modern Man. They pay attention to us. But what you just heard, guys, watch it. That's real deal. Not that we're not, but he just shared vulnerably, empathetically. He met some of you where you're at. You need to call your friends for help. And if you lose friends, they weren't real genuine. Okay? At the end of the day, if I've got friends who I can't have a beer with, that's fine. Having a beer is not a qualification of being my friend. Yeah. Right? I can go a night without one if I can spend time. So, guys, if you watch this, the guests that Ted brings on, and again, props for Ted for bringing on dudes who just share their stories. So, Davey, man, thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, I love you, brother. We're coming towards the end of this. My last question, it's really for all of us, is how can we help each other, right? And one thing you said earlier, which I loved, you said, if I only knew how much support I would have, right? And I think a lot of us, as men, as modern men, we use our test to become the testimony. We use our struggles to help others, and a lot of us would hope to be the support, not the ropes pulling someone else down. So I'd love to kind of bridge this on maybe the opposite side for someone who's already gone through their personal journey, or maybe for somebody who has someone in their lives who's currently going through it, what's the best way we can support others in their journey through recovery, through addiction if they're in the thick of it? How can we be that help, not the hindrance?
Yeah, I'll just throw it out there first, man. Do what he just did. It's story, man. You've got to get to a point where you're able to communicate with people, because typically we see it. It's kind of like when I see my kids, my boys do something, and I'm like, man, what's he doing? And then if I think about it, I'm like, he's doing what I do. There's a Hebrew proverb that literally says that God gives a man sons so he no longer needs a mirror. Wow. And that doesn't minimize daughters. It's just in the culture for men, it's just very important. And it's to do what he did, because we see those things. And when you've been there and you've done that, allow yourself to be a little bold and do what he did and put yourself in a spot. It doesn't have to be televised or broadcast anywhere, but getting with someone one-to-one and say, build friendship with them, camaraderie, but share your story. When you know they're genuinely interested, share your story, and don't try to make it sensationalized and fantastic. Say it like it was. So that person can look at that and they go, and you're here? That was you? Let them be surprised by the fact that this is what you used to look like.
Yeah. And I'm going to go next because I want David to have the last word on this. What's the point of having a group of friends if you can't call them when you need help? Like what? I mean, at the end of the day, what's the point of having 100 friends that if when you actually need help, you can't call any of the 100? I mean, that seems like a colossal waste of time. I mean, we talk about curating relationships. I think you talk about curating relationships. I mean, surround yourself with people that you can call on your best day and celebrate something, and surround yourself with people that on your worst day, you can call them and they're not going to cast you out. So it's not about the number. It's not about the quantity. It is about the quality. So how can we help one another? Maybe you just need to take a day, look at all the relationships that you spend time with, the text messages you've got to keep up with, and ask yourself, on your worst day, when you're in the hotel, you got two options. Who are the guys you calling? Those are the guys that need your time. I'm not saying ignore the rest, but like, what's the point of having friends if you can't call them on your worst day? I have a very small group of people now, right? Yeah. Guys on this panel, and then there's one other group of guys, and that's it. I'm good. Yep. Because I don't need them. I mean, I love celebrating with them, but when time's tough, that's who I call. Mm-hmm. So for me, how I would help is, what's the point of having friends if you can't call them on your worst day?
Yeah. I think there's nothing wrong with a small circle. My circle is extremely small now, where in the past it was, Charles and I would joke, back then they'd call me the mayor of Main Street because there wasn't a place I couldn't go if somebody didn't know me. Yeah. Seriously.
Mayor Davey.
We didn't wait in lines. We didn't wait at the bar. It was just, but that's the lifestyle. That's that service in there. It's a family, it is, but there was also in that circle of my friends, there were a lot of toxic people in there, and there's a lot of good ones, I still talk to some of them. It looks different, and it's like, like one of the Charles was the one I was afraid to tell forever, and he's been one of my biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah, he's in your space right now with you.
Yeah, and our life looks different now. Of course, he's got, family and kids. I've got family and kids, and we're not the young, didn't have I won't say responsibilities, but our life was a lot freer then. Right. So, but now it looks different, and so to be able to have those, and transparency is key. You got to, and vulnerability. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being weak. There's nothing wrong. I think a unit works better, and somebody might be weak in one area and somebody else is strong in another area. So I mean, it's, yeah. I just, don't be afraid. I mean, when it comes down to the end, you know, I just want to tell anybody, you know, if they are struggling or they're afraid or they don't know what to do, you know, you can reach out to Ted, and I've given him plenty of avenues to reach out for help. But you know, don't be afraid, and you know, don't be afraid to take that first step of whether it's a meeting or just telling somebody you need help with something. You know.
Yeah. Well, David, man, thank you, and Jonathan, Tim, appreciate you guys so much, and to you guys watching. Just to piggyback off of Davey, man, you know, take that step. You're not alone. I wrote a bunch of notes. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to point out, one I started was, those were just symptoms, not my issues. A lot of us look at the website we go to, the substance that we're drinking, taking in our nose, up our arm, whatever it might be, the relationship we keep going back to, whatever the addiction might be or look like. It could even be an addiction to working out. That necessarily isn't always the problem. Maybe the problem is something of internal work that you need to do. And don't be afraid to take that step and reach out for the support. As I mentioned, there's communities out there willing and ready to help you. There are resources out there as well. Reach out to us if you're looking for those. I'd love to give you those resources as well. And of course, I love when Davey said he reached outside for advice. And that was one of the things that changed, because he said, myself got me here. So maybe it was time to seek outside counsel. And it's okay to have a small circle. Who are you going to call? When you come to the crossroads where you have one direction or the other, who are you going to pick up the phone and call? And make sure those friends that you can celebrate with are also those friends that you can share the real with, and be transparent. Because that's what Modern Man's all about, is those deep, meaningful, real relationships that I hope and I pray each and every single one of you have. Go out there and be that friend that someone can call. And be a modern man. We'll catch you guys next time.